on. Okay, everybody, welcome to Max Spoilers from MinnMax. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen, clicking around and clicking all the wrong buttons in OBS for the visual layout. Also joined by Ross, the Star Wars Guy Fund. Welcome, Ross.
Hey, thanks for having me. Much like Kingo, I'm doing this for the views.
Look at this. We're also joined by, I want to say Bryan Vore, but with the mustache like that, it's really tough to tell. Welcome, Bryan.
Hey.
It was
you can't avoid the mustache when it's on a Zoom call.
Yeah, there's really no getting around it. You could do, I guess, a Wilson the Neighbor thing or something. It was really the shock of a lifetime because we went to see this movie, Eternals, in the theater last night. And then while at the theater, we're all wearing masks and stuff, and you're watching this, what is it, 4.5 hour long film? And then walking out, Bryan Vore took off his mask. He was like, good God! He's got the full Ted Lasso. I forgot that you went as that for Halloween, but it's looking good, man.
My daughter actually went as Ted Lasso, and then I had regular facial hair, and then the next day I went as the dad from Luca.
Oh, that's right.
He's got a mustache, so it was a very mustache-heavy weekend for the whole family.
What are you doing? You got 2 waves of different Halloween costumes in 1 year? That's absurd.
Yeah, Colleen is very creative, and she can't just stick to hold down to one idea. You know, if you've got multiple ones in there, you got to execute them. You have to wait a whole year before you can do it again.
I am very, very impressed. Hey, what this is, everybody, is this is a big spoiler cast for Marvel's Eternals. If you've never seen this film, which is probably likely because it just came out, get the hell out of here unless you truly don't care and you just want to hear what this film is all about. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for being here. We're live, so you can jump in the chat, let us know what you think. Correct us along the way for all of the tiny details we get wrong, please, like the word wrong. But also, if you support us on Patreon, you can unlock the podcast version of Max Spoilers, early access to the MinnMax Show podcast version of The Deepest Dive. Also, it's a nice way to just support the show. So if you follow that URL that's at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. You can unlock the podcast version of this. It's a piece of cake, and we'd appreciate the support. Marvel's Eternals. It seems like, I don't want to point fingers, but it seems like you guys were really struggling not to talk about this movie after we got done watching this movie last night.
It's hard to walk out of a theater with your friends and then say, hey, guys, let's not talk about this until tomorrow morning. But I'm glad that we did because, maybe sleeping on it for a night, unless you guys were so excited about this that you couldn't sleep.
I didn't sleep. Yeah, I kept thinking about Icarus's fighting moves all night. I couldn't get over it. No, it is a weird feeling to walk out and be like, well, we should talk about it. You guys even had like a little conversation briefly about like old Jon Snow and his role in the movie. Is like, save it. I feel like a dick, but it got to the point where Ross is like, I guess we could talk about Dune as we walk out of this theater because we don't want to talk about Eternals. Because turns out there's some stuff to talk about. Okay, Marvel's Eternals. Saw it last night. The story going in is, personally, I was a little bit skeptical. Reviews hit, and it's the lowest reviewed Marvel movie, and so everyone's making a big hullabaloo about that. There's, I'm sure, 6,000 think pieces happening, but Bryan, you tipped your hand a little bit. Ross, I'm very curious. High level, what'd you think of Marvel's Eternals?
I'm going to put it in my lowest tier of personal favorites when it comes to Marvel movies. It was a real mixed bag. I think that's the nicest thing I can say about it. There were, a few things that I did like and, a few funny moments, especially as we got going further along and we introduced more of the characters and got a little more charisma on screen, I think. But overall, I mean, for me, it's down there with Thor: Dark World, which I think had been my previous least favorite Marvel movie.
I still think Thor: Dark World gets a bad rap. To be fair, I only saw it once in theaters, but I remember thinking like, oh, there's some funny stuff in there, and that portal fight at the end is cool. And I was really, it's so stupid, and this is the problem with society, which is what this movie's about ultimately. It's just like watching this movie, I was like in my mind like tick 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 tick, like trying to like place it on the holy tier list of Marvel as it goes, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's better than like Iron Man 2. At least it's like ambitious and weird, which I feel like for so many of these Max spoilers now, I've been screaming like, get weird, Marvel, get weird. And then this movie, it's like, Okay, encapsulating all of human history. I want to like it, but it's in that arena. I don't think it's the bottom of my heap, but it's certainly nearing the bottom. But I could also see a world though where like 10 years from now, people look back on this movie and there's a bunch of people trying to reclaim it. Like, no, this is actually the coolest, weirdest Marvel movie. Everybody was a dick to it. But Bryan. That mustache, I can't stop staring at it. Bryan, what'd you think about this thing?
Well, as I may have slyly indicated last night, This is the only Marvel movie that I think walked out of the theater not liking.
Not liking.
Obviously, they had a lot to handle in this movie, and it would have been a tough project to take on for anyone.
Yeah.
Like as you mentioned, all of Earth history, human history, you have to establish a huge team that's bigger than the original Avengers, which most of them got their own movie to kind of set themselves up.
Right.
You get to know the characters. Most of those characters, people knew from popular culture over decades. I mean, not too many people outside of like really big comics nerds know the Eternals at all.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, the world is filled with the Epic of Gilgamesh fans. So in a way, it's like the most read book of all time going into this. You know, it's the greatest adaptation.
That's true. Icarus, you got all the Greek myths, so I guess you got that background.
Yeah.
But they don't like to be called by their full Greek names. It's just Athena.
Please give her
Please
respect.
call me Athena.
So I mean, that's the thing. Didn't like it to what extent? Like, you know, I know it's not Marvel mainline MCU, but like, did you enjoy Venom, Let There Be Carnage more than this film, would you say?
Oh, hell yes.
1,000,000%.
1,000,000%!
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's completely dumb fun. It knows what it is. It sticks to the theme. Like, everybody is, like, you know, it's got a mix of just, like, dumb.
Yeah.
And then hilarity. And then, like, just ridiculous action. Like, it's got obviously a lot less heavy lifting to do.
Right.
It also doesn't take itself seriously to the degree that this movie does, and that helps a lot too.
So this is the thing I'm struggling with is it's an easy film to nitpick, and we'll get into it, I'm sure. We'll go through every beat here. But at the same time, it is like the part that I keep coming back to is like, it is so wild to try and make this movie. And there are like moments as you're literally jumping through thousands of years of human history where it's like, oh, this is kind of beautiful. This is, and not just visually, thematically, this is kind of cool to make a superhero movie that's about literally the history of humanity on planet Earth. It's like there are so many moments in this where if I zoomed out away from the movie, I thought, this is a really fun idea. I like what they're working with here. You could tell me this pitch and I'd be like, yeah, let's swing for the fences. Let's go for it. I think just practically it's a little weird tonally, but like especially the stuff just about mythology and like the history of mythology, I was really into like just those little scenes of Sprite like telling everybody the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's like, okay, this is located in here, or like, okay, how is this person, how did Athena become the goddess of war? That's such a cool idea. And now it's weird to think about Athena and Thor technically existing within Marvel as like real people. Like, would they ever meet? Just as a mythology fan, that stuff is fun. But just like that idea of just trying to piece together who places where, like, okay, Circe in this film, is that the Circe from the Odyssey then? Like the seductive witch? Like, I guess the powers kind of line up. Or stop me from rambling, please. But there's also just like the fascinating stuff of like, okay, so we're learning about the origins of the universe here. So in the Marvel universe, the idea of Earth's religions are wiped off the map. And then there's that interest, well, I mean, as in being the truth, right? And I know we're diving into the deep end. But then there's this interesting stuff. Like there's that moment where Sprite's like, what are we going to do? Put every animal on our ship 2 by 2? And it's like, so is that Sprite because she's been a storyteller throughout history, like throwing shade on the Bible because it's the one story she didn't tell? Or like what? Like that is the stuff that I think is really cool and interesting in this movie. The floor is yours, gentlemen. Is there anything there?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, jumping through history. I would have loved to see them even like let's have a fun historical montage, maybe.
Sure.
Showing them at different points in their lives throughout history, doing different things that earned them their reputations. All that stuff would be cool. Yeah. Like that stuff connected with me a little bit as well, but like we had like a bunch of stuff in Babylon and then a couple scenes here and there, them, watching a lot of genocides happening that they're like,
Right.
oh, should we do something about this? I guess not,
Right.
And I guess that theme was the one that connected with me the most, where they stand by and watch terrible things happen throughout history, and then they finally decide, hey, maybe we should actually do something about it. That's where I thought the historical stuff came most into play effectively.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it was just the tone too, because it's just like so serious all the time. We finally get a little bit of fun with Kumail and his Bollywood stuff, and then it's immediately like, by the way, our friend of thousands of years is dead.
Yes,
like
it is.
every time you get to introduce a new fun character, it's like they have to ultimately end the scene with your friend is dead.
Right. I know it's such a mess structurally. Like you can't have this world trotting, like getting the team back together to bum them the hell out. It's like, oh my gosh. That's not what people like about recruiting scenes. Like that scene in particular really stood out. Is like that Kumail high of the fun Bollywood dance. Like, what is he doing? Why is he winking at the camera? Okay, I see. He's basically Johnny Cage, I guess, where he's just like the obnoxious actor. Like, okay, got it. I think that's a cool mold for him to be in. And then immediately it's, no. Actually, you should be really sad right now. But then also we'll have your director tag along for comic relief. And you're going to be doing a lot of lifting comedically. And I think by and large, they pull it off. Like, it's a really fun
He was the best
pairing.
character in the movie, right? The director, the producer dude.
Yeah. What was that weird line where he's like, yeah, I met him 50 years ago. He tried to kill me because he thought I was a vampire. Was that like just more of seeding Blade? Because they reference vampires. Was it in Loki? There was a quick reference to? Or is that some joke that I didn't understand? Or do you think it's as simple as trying to seed Blade in some weird way?
I think it's just like he realized that Kingo, Kumail's character, is someone who doesn't age, and he's like, there's something unnatural about this. You must be a vampire.
I see.
I'm going to take you down.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's as simple as that.
Yeah, because as we know, they're not afraid of referencing other pop culture things, including chief competitor DC Comics.
Both a Batman and a Superman reference.
I know. And the Batman one came first, and that was a bit of a stretch of like, oh, it's valet, like Alfred. It's like, yeah, I don't know if that's like number one Alfred role in my mind.
Bruce Wayne's trusty valet, Alfred.
Right. That one was such a weird stretch. But then, like, when you get into the Icarus Superman stuff, it's like, oh, that's kind of fun. And really, there's nothing, I don't know. It's the ultimate throwing shade, I think, to be like, yeah, your cute little fictional characters exist in our universe, DC. We eat you for lunch. I'm sorry. You're just little playthings. We're the real deal. And then,
which is totally weird to me, because they have real life superheroes running around the entire world, and they still need to invent a comic book Superman.
Yeah, it is a little confusing. And I was thinking, like, God, that's so crazy. And Bryan, even in the middle of the film, you said out loud, can they do that? Which I was thinking about this morning, and it's like, well, they did it in Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man movie. Remember? We're not May's like, you're not Superman, And it was like that big trailer moment of like,
oh, God,
yeah.
that is so weird. And I think they've made some Super Friends references in some of the old movies, too.
Oh, okay.
Still weird.
It is.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's like fun as long as you don't think about it too closely, because it's like, are there no like fun superhero movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in that world? Like, are they like, our real life heroes are so fun and all our movies are real serious?
Right.
Well, we know they're watching Star Wars. That kid had a Star Wars book, and he had lightsabers drawn on the wall.
Yep, so they can no longer combine the universes. Well, I guess in the multiverse, anything is technically possible here. But yeah, I mean...
However, in What If, there was one of the episodes, there was an X-Wing in one of that big hangar way in the background in the shadows.
Oh, yeah, really?
Right.
Oh,
in
that's
the
interesting.
T'Challa as Star-Lord episode.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, there's also... I mean, this is a movie that, if you really want to overthink it, be our guest. I guess that's what the internet's for, but you'll tear it apart. Just like, those weird things of like, okay, so what is her name? I liked her a lot. Makari, the speedster. It's like, so did she bring American Sign Language to the world then? Because they were using it, and maybe it wasn't American Sign Language. Maybe it was a different form of sign language they were using back in like the 5000 BC first scene and stuff. But like all that world history stuff gets so messy. And especially then when you incorporate like the rest of the MCU. And I think like by and large, that's a weird issue with this movie is, and I know it's tough when you're establishing a new universe, but it feels very much like this is maybe a stretch, but there's this beat that I always really liked with Matt and Trey from South Park, where they were talking about like how they realized the epiphany of storytelling seasons and seasons into South Park, where they said their mistake was they would write all these scripts and say, and then this happened, and this happened, and they realized, oh no, if you just change and to therefore, all of your stories flow a lot better. And this is a weird stretch, but I was watching this movie and I was like, this is the ultimate Marvel and. Just like, and all of this stuff was happening on Earth the whole time. It's like, what? And like, it's kind of connected, I guess, with like the idea of the blip, and then that got rid of the food supply. And so there was kind of a little therefore in there, but...
Yeah, we got a little too close to Thanos was right for my tastes in that scene.
Right.
He's like, he prevented this terrible thing from happening by removing half of all life.
Okay. I think, I ain't no writer, but if I could make one big change to this movie, just get rid of Deviants completely. Cut them out of the story. Did we really need them? If this story was just this group, fun dynamics, trying to hold themselves together, they start to fracture, they fight. Do we need more than that? Like, when it was on exposition number 8 about explaining the evolution of deviants and how they varied from this path and, like, going into their history in every world, like, what is this? That frickin' humanoid deviant character, I don't care if we're talking, like, background extra. He is the most forgettable MCU character I've ever seen in my life. Who was that guy? What was that?
When he first evolved and just was like, hey guys, hey, what's up? It's like he's like, wow, monsters, and he just starts talking. I couldn't help but laugh out loud.
It's unbelievable.
It's ridiculous.
Hey, during the opening crawl, when they say, they're explaining the background of everything. Were you guys also like, Deviants is a weird name for an allegedly completely unrelated alien species?
Yeah, that's a huge note too, is like the film opens with that text crawl, and like in my core of cores is this feeling of, oh no, you guys, this is not why we like Marvel. We cannot have lore text crawl explaining the background of this universe with Aresham creating this and then this and then this. It's like, people aren't having fun right now, Marvel, and that's why people like your movies. I'm sorry.
I can hardly complain about that.
That was a big red flag, but I feel like the only people that get a pass for that is Star Wars, because people expect it now. But yeah, if you're doing it with a Marvel movie, it's like, this is not a good sign.
And I also feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, Ross, the Star Wars guy fun, but I feel like in most Star Wars movies, could you get rid of the opening crawl? I don't think you'd be confused. It's almost like background flavor text, right?
Yeah, you more or less could do that. I mean, if you've never seen the first movie, it's probably really helpful to get the basic background. But I mean, little kids have been watching Star Wars since the beginning of time with no problems. So
that's a good point.
And they can't read. So I think you could lose it. But yeah, this one, I don't know.
In the chat here, Dancing Flower says, in the comics, Deviants were failed Eternals, hence the name. Okay, there we go. It's just, I think the part that I liked about this movie, about just world history, mythology, and stuff like that, that also bumped me the wrong way with Deviants, because I'm like, couldn't you come up with like something more fun in the history of mythology that the Deviants were the whole time? Like, their design was just, they're big goopy things, and I guess they sting you with these little tails, where it's like, this is the thing that's popping up throughout Earth, throughout human civilization, and there's nothing? Like, I don't know if I wanted these things to be Bigfoot, or just like have like something that's a little more connected if you're going to have them, other than goopy, weird things.
Yeah, kind of a missed opportunity here. That's a great point with the Eternals themselves being, historical mythological figures, would have been nice to tie the Deviants in, but maybe it's kind of hard to do that with just like weird, wiry monsters that don't have much else going on for them.
Yeah, and they kind of got that in the credit scene. They would show like the art that seemed to be kind of depicting that, but it was never really too clear, I don't think. But let's see. Let's try and go for a nice thing. What else did people like? Ross, you talked about best joke in the movie.
Hey, best joke in the movie when they meet up with Druig and he's making fun of Kingo about that, about his views on YouTube or whatever.
Right. How he's directed once the YouTube thing.
Back and forth.
I'm not in it for the views.
Yeah, I've directed some internet content.
And then there's also like that moment later on when he says, "Oh God, why did I just blank on it? Why did I blank on that other joke that he had?" And never mind. The point is, Kumail was definitely.
I like the one where he stabbed the deviant and was all goopy and got on his face, and he was like, "Hey, did you get that?"
Yeah, that was fun. The one I was thinking of is when he was like talking about. She's like, "Oh, have you seen my movies?" She's like, "Oh, I don't have DVDs." And then Higby, and he's like, "DVDs?" Just like that quick moment of like, "What are you talking about?"
I
also liked how they kept destroying cameras, and he would keep like having another weird tiny one.
Right.
Yes,
right.
Smaller and smaller.
those are good gags. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did like when this movie would show its Jack Kirby roots, like their weird imaginary light lines that would appear every now and then. Those look very Jack Kirby. Those were pretty cool. Like cosmic stuff when we'd fly out and see Arishem, the giant celestial, that always looked cool. I was like, whose voice is that? Because it sounds so familiar to me. It's David Kaye, longtime voice actor, also the voice of Clank in Ratchet and Clank.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I looked him up and saw that he did like Megatron stuff.
Yeah, he's the most prominent non-Frank Welker Megatron.
Okay.
But yeah, like low voice, godly being is kind of right in his wheelhouse. So
That's
he did
perfect.
a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
visually, I liked when the hand was coming out of Earth and like the head, like anything with the celestial stuff. The scale was really cool looking.
Oh yeah, and I love like permanent changes to the world, and I love the idea that now in the MCU, for all time, there's going to be this weird stone hand and part of a celestial head popping out. Like, I hope it's just like in the background of some shot or at some point it's referenced. I just love having that as like a new change to the Earth, So that was good. The
one thing we have to address before we go any further, were Jon Snow and Robb Stark cast simply because there is a character named Cersei in this movie?
That's right. That's the only reason. It was weird, like, for their big scene where it seemed like the movie really slowed down to have them like shake hands, like, "Hello, nice to meet you, pleasure to meet you." Like, this is so bizarre. And then when they both start saying Cersei repeatedly, it's like, this is so bizarre.
Like Rob saying, "I love you, Cersei," like like flipping it on its head. They had to have cast him like highly, like that really helped him, right? But even though, I don't know, from my perspective, it was extremely just distracting the whole time. You're just thinking about Game of Thrones the whole movie.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a coincidence. It's just like, they're talented actors. Are we going to say no to like having this fun connection? I guess is probably the discussion they had. Like, why throw it away?
Well, yeah, and I mean, Ross knew the name Dane Whitman from the comics, but I didn't. So I was like, did they really cast Jon Snow just to be like the 10-minute screen time boyfriend?
Yeah.
They could have had anyone in that role, but then I guess it makes sense later after the spoiler or the credits thing.
So have you guys since looked up anything about the Black Knight, Dane Whitman, the Kit Harington character?
Yeah, a little bit. So I got that his sword is called the Ebony Blade and that it was wielded by Merlin at a certain point. That's about where I got.
He did a little Ebony Blade Easter egg with Athena, and somebody asked her when she's swinging around that real sword, they're like, "Oh, is that the Ebony Blade?" And I resisted from elbowing Bryan because I knew he'd be like, "What are you even talking about?" But yeah. So yeah, the Black Knight is like a B-list Avengers hero that was most prominent in like the 80s and early 90s, I think, when the Avengers were at their absolute lowest in terms of popularity and excitement. And yeah, he's got the cursed blade, which I think maybe more recently they've done some more interesting things with that in the comics.
Okay.
But yeah, he had the cursed blade, and then when the 90s came around, he kind of was like, he got rid of that. He put a leather jacket over the top of his weird medieval armor costume, and then he built just a lightsaber, which made me, of course, get into him a little bit.
Okay, that's kind of fun. It's weird because like I thought they were setting up, like, okay, this feels like Disney Plus show about the Black Knight. Here we go. But then to follow that immediately with Eternals will return, it's like, oh, so is Black Knight going to be a big part of Eternals, or are they going to? I'm sorry that we're all now Marvel executives, but it's just like, okay, well, are they setting up the idea of maybe having like a Disney Plus show that then is King Arthur and like that era, so like the origins of the Ebony Blade, and they reference King Arthur in this as well. Like that's a little bit of a door that's opened if they want to go into it.
Yeah, I don't see a Black Knight movie coming anywhere, so maybe he'll be a co-star, maybe he'll be like in the Thunderbolts thing, who knows? But like I had to look this up when I got home last night. I was like, who was that voice?
Yes,
we could not recognize it, and there's no good answer for it, which kind of shocked me.
Yeah,
what you're referencing the voice off screen that was like talking to Jon Snow, right?
Yep. So sure you want to do that?
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one could attribute the voice, huh?
No, there were some articles that were like, it's Nick Fury. I was like, I don't think so.
No,
some people were saying it's maybe
not...
like Kang. It's like, oh, that'd be interesting. I don't know. It seems like people would have pieced that together because, like, I know this is at home, so maybe it was easier to rewind and stuff, but it was so quick in WandaVision, was it episode 1, where people are like, oh, that sounds like that cop FBI agent that it turns out was a huge part of that show moving forward. Like people in the Marvel universe are very good at picking out whose voice is whose, but that was really bizarre that we had no idea.
Yeah, there's some guesses that it's Blade.
Oh, that could be interesting.
We had I think some help with the WandaVision one because there was some casting stuff out. So like they were like, it's got to be this guy.
Okay,
but,
yeah,
they're really being tight-lipped about this one-line guy, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. People are saying it's the new Blade. That's interesting. So maybe that's how they would tie that in. That'd be an interesting way to connect some of the new movies. At least, as Blade is connected to the Eternals through the Black Knight. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So Blade's like, I see you're just about to touch a blade.
Might I jump in? Yeah.
Maybe you've heard of me. My name is also Blade.
That moment at the end, there's a part of me where it's like, that's almost bigger than Thanos for just things rocking Earth. Like if you saw a Celestial all of a sudden looking at Earth from the sky, that's going to be the talk of Earth for the next 100 years. I assume crazier stuff will happen, but it's like, I appreciate this movie going for the big absurd swings of just like, yeah, I know, and then just Areshem just shows up and plucks people off the Earth, and everybody on Earth gets to see this giant god. That's such a cool idea.
If that happened, I would get on my bike as fast as possible and ride away. I was like, that guy was doing the right thing.
Right. The thing I don't like is that idea of he's like, you say Earth is really cool and people are cool. I'll have to look into this. Like, I want my gods to be a little more all-knowing than that idea of... here's the core of it. I don't like feeling that we're special. This is some weird dark thoughts. Or that Earth is special. Like, especially when the core of the MCU is about now expanding into the universe, multiverse, the more they can be like, yeah, we're expanding bigger and bigger and bigger, but really we're like the center of the universe because we're special and cool. And when a god is even like, maybe you are pretty sweet. Like, that sucks. I don't want that at all.
You may have killed my offspring, but I'm going to try to handle this like an adult.
right.
Yeah, I think the whole... I thought the central thing of like, ooh, that's crazy. Like, the god is planting seeds in planets, and when they hatch, it explodes.
Right.
Like, it's a cool concept. However, you have that thing the whole movie where you're like, well, I mean, Earth's not going to explode, so why am I worried about any of this? You know?
Right. It'd be kind of cool if it did, and maybe in this new era of the multiverse, everything could be explained. Of like, we're being teleported away to a different Earth or something like that. It's all out the window, everybody. Here is a core problem, I'd say, with the movie. And Bryan, I know maybe you're on the coolest end of Eternal Love, but it's a core problem with the movie when you were 5 times as invested about whether or not Gilgamesh's pie fell and hit the ground when he was holding it like that. Then you were about Ajax dying. Then you were about one of the wildest things that's ever happened in the MCU, which is a character flying into the sun. Like, just barely registered, but that pie is a real issue.
It was huge. It looked delicious. It was fresh out that oven. And I was like, don't tell him while he's carrying the pie. Oh.
And like, just to have it vertically hanging for a while. It's the most emotional shot of the film, I would honestly say.
I'm surprised they didn't have like a bell toll when it fell onto the ground.
It's just like
Fast 9 when that car falls.
Yeah, or it's just like the cup in Usual Suspects on the ground, just slow motion shattering over and over and over again.
The pie represents us all.
In a way. Well, you know, if you want to get into some real Freudian stuff, like, it is a pretty sexual movie. If you really boil a lot of things down, it's like, okay, so Sprite wants to have sex. Let's see. Phastos is happy because he found love here now. There's a weird love triangle here now. There's actually a sex scene. Like, it's pretty sexy for a Marvel film. Like, throughout this entire film, I kept thinking of like, yeah, what would I think if I saw this as a kid and I was a Marvel fan? Like, especially that sex scene, just be like, it would be memorable for that, of like, this is that weird movie where they did a lot of weird stuff, I guess.
Yeah, speaking of that sex scene, I feel like those are only added when you have to have like a weird pregnancy thing later. So even if it was 1,000 years later, I was like, is she gonna be pregnant? I'm like, maybe gestational time in Eternals is longer. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, much like the planet being pregnant with that celestial.
It's like poetry. It rhymes. Yeah, that's it. No, I think just Chloe Zhao wanted another beautiful, humanity-driven shot at either sunrise or dusk, which I think her sleep cycle must just be prime time day and peak night, because everything with Chloe Zhao has to be just that sun barely on the horizon. But obviously there's some beautiful shots in here, so I won't judge it. It's cool to have big parts of the MCU taking place in South Dakota. I'm a fan.
Yeah, Bryan.
That's one Ross did actually nudge me for, because he knew I would get that state reference, because that's where I lived a good chunk of my youth.
Oh, there we go. In that house.
It did look a little more like North Dakota to me, but you know.
Okay, but who's pointing fingers? Yeah,
it's cool they were able to get the rights to shoot in the one house in South Dakota.
Yeah, way to go! Very impressive. We can say that as Midwesterners. We can make jokes about our fellow beloved state.
That does remind me, as far as location goes, that opening Deviant fight was in kind of the Camden Lock area.
Yes.
Of England, where we stayed for some that's where I stayed for every Arkham coverage story I did, and I think you were there for the third one at least.
Yeah,
right?
for the Arkham Knight cover story at Game Informer. Yeah, that's true. I saw that with the big Camden Locks thing in the back. It's like, oh, we spent a lot of time there. Look at that. That's cool. Rocksteady. Hello. Yeah. Okay, that opening in London. This is, again, getting nitpicky. I apologize. But it was weird where it's like, all right, Cersei's working at this museum, and she's an eternal being, and then she goes into the class to teach about apex predators. It's like, why is this so familiar? I was like, oh, this is Wonder Woman 1984, like in the museum, right? Like they had that big discussion about apex predators in Wonder Woman 1984, right?
Yes.
It's just bizarre.
In the museum.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what are they going to do? Like rewrite it because 1984 came out and they also talk about apex predators, but it's just that weird moment of like, why does this feel so vaguely familiar? Let's see. Here's another thing. I think we talked about it a lot with the Loki story. I don't like it when movies and fiction downplay immortality. When it's just that idea of like, oh no, you're immortal beings. Technically, you've been reset for 7,000 years here. But then it's like 7,000 years, but then in the last 5, Festus was like, now I like this kid. Like, I don't like these people should all be mad. And I know that they kind of get into that with that mad weary thing, which is, I think, an interesting, cool idea. But it's still that idea of just like, they're an immortal being and this is as smart as they are. They're just kind of like average people after 7,000 years? No way.
Yeah, we did see that the speedster was reading a lot of books. I thought of it particularly in that scene. I'm like, oh, she goes through books so fast.
Yeah.
Like, she's gonna run out. How hasn't she seen all of the Kumail movies? Like, she's got nothing to do.
Well, yeah, she watches.
What's tough though is she can read his book as fast as she wants, but if she's watching a movie, it probably seems like the slowest, most boring way to ingest any content, right?
Yep, she watches YouTube at 1.75 speed though, so it kind of is. Well, I guess she doesn't stream, so I guess that's not a factor. But yeah,
I love watching stuff at fast speeds.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. I hope people are watching us at fast speed. But I think one of the coolest shots in the movie was when she was running to the volcano, and like just really getting to see like how fast you can go. It's like, oh, this is pretty cool. Plus, hats off for a superhero movie having a fast character and not doing the scene where you get to see things slow from her perspective as she's slowly tweaking things, which every film that has somebody going fast, you gotta have that scene, and they've shied away.
Gotta be tough to resist. Speaking of Eternals and their various powers, were you guys also surprised that Druig did not turn out to be the villain, given his general dislike of free will?
Yeah, that idea of him being like, no more, I've seen this genocide. I'm going to control people and we're going to be good from now on. Jump cut to 500 years later and he's like controlling 20 weirdos in a jungle with shotguns. I was like, this is your grand plan? Why do they all have guns? What's happening?
Yeah, and the synchronized shotgunning of the Deviants was so weird.
Yeah, and if there was ever an ethical use of mind control to help people defend themselves against a crazy space alien that's trying to attack them, that would be the only ethical use, right? But the other Eternals are like, don't do that.
I there's some stuff like this in Star Wars too, but the creation of a hero character and you give them one power, and then the whole time it's like, oh, this is your only power, this is your specialty, but it's bad if you ever use it.
Yes.
You know? Like, I don't like that in fiction, I guess. Like, unless it's, like, key to their development, like, constantly pushing it away, but like, everyone gets a cool power, and his is the only one that everyone's like, oh, it's like, you don't give her crap when she goes fast, you know?
Right. Yeah, like, what is the point, of him being on this planet if not to mind control everybody? The powers were a little bit confusing, especially, like, Festus was like, so he can, like, create iron things out of the air? Like, just that idea of, I know it's kind of like it played for a joke and stuff. And again, I'm sorry for taking these movies too seriously. But just that idea of, like, so he's around to give some human inventions, but we're still capable of other things. Like, there's still like Tony Stark out there, like doing the craziest inventions of all time. Like, we need somebody to really help nudge us towards the plow. Like, when is he jumping in? When is he not? What's going on with all these different abilities?
Yeah, very unclear. And that brings me to my least favorite thing about the movie, which was the Hiroshima scene.
Ooh, really?
I mean, it's like that is like maybe the most culturally relevant event of modern history. I don't know, but just to totally sanitize it and have him standing there in the ashes saying, I feel like I'm at fault. I don't know. It really rubbed me the wrong way.
It's so weird because I think one thing you can say about Chloe Zhao is she seems like a very sincere filmmaker. And at times this movie is very dopey, but I do feel like it is coming from a sincere place of wanting to unpack all of humanity's pros and cons. And it's like, that's ambitious. God bless you. But there's scenes like that where, it's just, it's a little dopey.
Well, I think that person next to you in the theater really was on board with all of the journey.
It was amazing. I was so happy. It was this person sitting next to me just by herself. And she was just the most emotive person. I should have been annoyed, but I just loved it because it was every scene, she'd have a reaction. She would repeat lines. Every time somebody would say, like, don't you understand? Humanity's capable of great things and bad things. She'd be, like, genuinely, like, it was just every scene, no matter how hokey it was, she was all in. I'm like, yes. It's like, okay, this is working for somebody.
Anything marginally funny, she would get a big kick out of.
Yeah. So hey,
the action stuff, she'd be like, yes, like it was the perfect audience. I think if you were an executive at Marvel.
Yes. Oh, big time. Yeah. Yeah, there's some of those scenes, and I'd love to know, what scenes were picked up later and stuff. But there was one scene that there's moments where I just looked around the theater like, are we all experiencing it? Is anybody else reacting to this? Like that scene where they're in the house, and I forget if it's Gilgamesh or who says it, but somebody just says at a certain point, so you're saying we thought we were the good guys the whole time, but we were actually the bad guys. It's like literally the line. It's like, oh my God. Okay. All right. We're really spelling this out for folks, but sure.
Spell it out.
Yeah.
Another thing I thought too, it was very much Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fielding when they're like, whoa, that old Captain America, I could lead the event. Not interacting at all with a character we know and just referencing all these big events. It makes it feel like B or C tier just by not being able to pull any of those characters in and just referencing them.
Yeah.
And then also when the big post-credit stuff where it's supposed to be the big surprises, it's like, haha, here's a guy. And it's like the surprise is that it's Harry Styles and not like that it's a big like Marvel character that we've been wanting to see A or B that we already know,
I thought it was going to be Adam Warlock, like when he was slowly walking towards us.
Yeah, I was like, it could very well be Thor, that would be, that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, it was Star Fox, a character I thought would never show up in the MCU because, talking about the problematic nature of mind control, Star Fox's whole power is to like make women hot for him. And it's, yeah, like
that's why he's Eros.
If you go back and look at Star Fox stories over the years, it's pretty cringy.
So then, again, this is getting into the stuff that I like, but also where it gets messy. So it's like, okay, he's Eros, so he's the god of love. So did Sprite know about him at some point and told the story? Did she have some connection to the other Eternals secretly? Or it's just like, it's that problem of, I think when these characters were originally made, they just thought, what are a bunch of old names? And they just kind of wrote those down. And now they have to find some way to be like, yeah, this is why Gilgamesh is hanging out with Cersei. Don't look into it too much. Okay, yeah. Number one question. Who is Harry Styles? Because I looked online and everyone's like, Harry Styles!
Yeah, the best thing is like when he came on screen, the whole theater reacts. Ross and Ben are both just like, who's this guy?
Yeah, I'm schmuck.
I'm like, this reaction is not for Star Fox, so it's got to be for the actor, and I don't know who that is.
Right.
International recording superstar Harry Styles got his start in One Direction. Have you guys heard of them?
Didn't they reference One Direction in the film? I swear to God, they made a One Direction reference.
Really? Oh wow!
Am I nuts? They talked about like getting One Direction for something. Was it in the film scene with Kumail? Didn't he say like One Direction was on board? Or maybe I'm nuts. I could have sworn.
Oh. I think there was a BTS thing in there, but
that's what it was. Honestly, that's as stupid as my brain is. Yeah, I thought, the popular band was popular band. Yes, you're totally right. It was BTS. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he's had a very big solo. He's a very big solo career. Loved the world over. And he also was in. He's been in a couple movies here and there. He was in. That Nolan war movie.
Dunkirk.
Dunkirk, yeah.
Really? Okay.
He was one of the soldiers in that. That was kind of his big debut in acting, but it's cool to, I guess, see him keep that going. If they're gonna have a creepy seductor man, I guess you might as well get that dude. But I really, like Ross is saying, I don't know how you have this character do his main power without it being super creepy and weird.
Yeah. Also, it seems like we're burying the lead. This character's name is Star Fox, everybody. Also, we're burying the other lead, which is that he's Thanos' brother.
Yes.
What?
That is weird as hell.
What the hell is happening? And like I read the Infinity Gauntlet, and it's like, okay, I guess he was in there, but I did not connect that or think that they would ever pull in the idea of Thanos' brother.
So is he in a mechanical Eternal man, but also a purple Thanos alien, or how does that work? Ross, do you have any idea?
I want to say, I'm sure somebody can correct us on this, but I want to say maybe Thanos was also an Eternal in the comics.
Yeah.
But of course, comics Eternals are not exactly the same as movie Eternals. So.
And then it gets confusing, like the Celestials, because Ego, the planet in Guardians 2, he was a Celestial as well, right? He just
Really? Okay.
I think so, but I don't know if in the movie they made that clear that he was also celestial, but I think technically. And then I thought this was like the worst CG of the movie. Maybe it was coming in hot or something, but like, hey, Patton Oswalt is Pip coming in. But I thought he looked like trash. Am I nuts?
Yeah. It's just like a weird mascot in a commercial or something. Like to have that be your big finale, like of the whole thing. People end with this taste in your mouth of just like this kooky candy mascot.
Keebler elf coming in.
Yeah, like he's gonna throw some Skittles at you.
Right, and like if he's coming in and it's Patton Oswalt, at least give me some real funny stuff. But it was like, hey, he's drinking, which okay, sure. But like, I just wanted some great joke to land at the end. Please, I was craving it.
Yeah, apparently I read something about him. Like, I don't know, Ross, you're probably familiar with his character from the comics, but he drinks. He has like a purpose for drinking all the time, right? Like it gives.
Oh, really?
Gives him some kind of power or something, or.
I know that like Pip the Troll is a beloved kind of cosmic character in the Marvel thing, but Cosmic Marvel is where I have the least amount of knowledge. So I only know of his existence, much like Harry Styles, and I don't know what his deal is.
Right.
He did have an Infinity Stone for a while, apparently in the comics.
Pip did?
I read that somewhere. Yeah,
that's
like he was trusted with hanging on to it for some reason.
Huh? Maybe that wasn't Infinity Gauntlet. I don't remember. So do you think they're gonna have a scene then where Gamora meets Star Fox and is like, hey, and she has to like call him uncle? They're gonna make a bunch of uncle jokes. Like, will they try to ram those two together? Do you think Eternals will be relevant in a major way for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, or even a minor way? Is this post credits?
Great question. I mean, they said the Eternals would return. I kind of hope that it's in a different movie if it happens. But...
yeah, it seems like when they build or they spell that out at the end, that's typically them saying we're all in on a sequel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it does seem like it. I don't see James Gunn incorporating these kind of straight-laced dorks into his loosey-goosey fun movie.
But maybe he can do something fun with them. I'd like to see it,
because there are moments. There are moments like, in the scene in South Dakota at the end where they're all in the house being silly, where it's like, oh, this feels like what the movie should have been. More of this is just like them interacting in a lighthearted way, and less
more hands and toasters.
Yes, that is it. Too much less for hands and toasters, and less of them standing in a triangle formation looking serious.
Or a line. Those guys love to line the hell up.
Oh, they just love it. Sorry,
Can't
Brian.
get enough of it.
Yeah, you're saying about Guardians though, Brian?
Oh, yeah, like, I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe at the end, like a stinger credit thing, but I'm sure he would be like, can I get like a cool Avenger or something?
Yeah, I think, I don't know.
You guys fired me and then, felt bad and brought me back, and now we had to delay the movie so many years, they're just going to let him do whatever he wants, and I can't picture that including the Eternals unless he happens to be a fan from before.
Right. And I think just timeline-wise, it's interesting because he probably wrote Volume 3, at least outlined it before 2018, which is when this movie was pitched, with Chloe Zhao pitching it to Kevin Feige. And I read a Wired article, which was interesting, talking about the history of this movie's development, and how it was Chloe Zhao pitching it, and then that is what convinced Kevin Feige, we should do Eternals. Which is always scary of just God, I would hope that Marvel has a master plan compared to let's throw these guys in there too. It feels a little bit like that. I know that's reductive and stuff. But, and then there's a line too where Kevin Feige said it was in the middle of the tough production of Eternals that I talked to Chloe Zhao and I realized that the next phase of the MCU is actually going to work out. That the future of MCU is in good hands or something like that. And I was like, it's interesting that he was that. Who knows? This is all, I think, a weird backhanded way of him trying to kiss ass. But in that article, they talk about Chloe Zhao's pitch, and there's an interesting detail in there where apparently the original pitch for Eternals, it used imagery from Final Fantasy. And I would love to talk to Chloe Zhao to figure out if she's a fan of Final Fantasy. So the entire time I was watching, I was like, this movie does kind of have like a Final Fantasy 13 energy to it at times. Or like even at the end, it's a little bit of Yuna, like, you know, Cersei and stuff. Yeah. Like there's some stuff in there where I could kind of see it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, you know that character Gilgamesh that shows up in all these games? What if he's an Eternal?
Right. Ooh, there we go. Interesting. It's all connected. That's why she liked Gilgamesh so much.
Sprite has anime hair, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. There's another instance.
By the way, Sprite, the whole time I'm like, look at this. Why is there a weird little Peter Pan running around in this movie? And then they directly say, hey, do you like Peter Pan? I'm like, oh, whoa. They're going to do it. They're talking about it. It's like, you're not Peter Pan. You're Tinkerbell. I'm like, are you serious? She looks exactly like Peter Pan. Like, they should cast her in a new Peter Pan movie right now.
That is another one of those instances of the movie just like, hey, any subtext? Let's make that very clear text. This thing going on, it reminds us of Peter Pan, everybody. It's a little creepy.
Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you guys about. So we get the reveal flashback scene where you see that Icarus has killed Ajax and is kind of a villainous figure. And then you get another 5 minutes of movie, and then the characters, the other Eternals, realize that he's the bad guy too. Right. And that whole scene felt super weird to me.
Yes.
Like it felt like it was all reshoots. Like it was like only like close-ups, like how we appear right now on the characters talking and cutting between them. I was like, none of these people seem like they're together in the same space.
It's so tough to try and piece together what's a reshoot and what isn't, and not like there are reports that this was more reshot than any other Marvel movie or anything like that. But yeah, that entire sequence just did not work for me. Like that entire span of talking about the Deviants and then Icarus turning and stuff, it just felt like a mess. But I do think it was cool that leading into it, they were really going hot and heavy with Robb Stark being the core of this film. And it worked for me. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm glad he's not going to be the big future of the MCU. Like, it's cool that Cersei, a character who I don't even know if I could have picked out of a lineup based on the trailers, ends up being the star of the show. And, like, it's probably going to be the biggest thing moving forward, even if her power is confusing. She likes making birds and flower petals out of stuff.
I do like when she tried to explain herself. She's like, one time I turned a rock into water, and then another time
yeah, like, we got it. Yeah, that was a funny scene.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on Icarus being the bad guy and that being fun and him not being, the new center of the film or whatever. All that stuff was great. What I was not a fan of was that at the end of that scene, Kingo was like, I might be the best character in this movie, but guess what? I'm just going to take a powder for the climax. So you guys are on your own.
Right. Yeah.
Just walk out of here and you guys figure it out.
Yeah, it's like interesting that all these characters are reacting differently to their core beliefs being challenged, and his was that he wasn't with them, but he wasn't going to fight them or try to stop them in any way. But I just didn't like that it took my favorite Eternal off the screen for the rest of the movie, essentially.
Yeah. Did you guys?
Yeah, for not a really strong reason. It wasn't like, he's got a spear through the shoulder and he's pinned to the wall. Can't do anything. He's just like, I'll see you guys.
I kind of agree with this guy, and he's bad now. Okay, bye. I was confused about a lot of things. But the Unimind plan, all that stuff, wasn't there something in there about if we do this, we'll lose our immortality? Wasn't there something about aging? So then I was confused when it was the big thing with Sprite of we're going to make you a real girl. You're human now. You'll age. And I was like, I thought the implication was if they did that they would all age, right?
It was not explained very well for that reason. And also I was like, were they all just forced to do it? Was Icarus, he joined in, but was that his free will or was he forced to? That kind of wasn't clear.
Yeah, that'd be a good point to clarify. Did he have a change of heart at that point, or was he just forced? That's a huge distinction.
Yeah, I think a lot of things with that character just felt a little bit flat. Maybe it's it was so subtle, but I think going for that subtlety in a Marvel movie, especially right next to a character like Kumail Nanjiani's character, it's tough to be subtle in this tone, and it just kind of reads as boring and flat. If he was in any other Chloe Zhao movie, maybe it would work out okay, you know?
One small note, even though since he's very much not Superman, what I liked, this is very specific, but when he was fighting Speed Lady, Makari, right?
Yep, Makari.
He's not Superman, so he doesn't also have the same super speed powers. So he's like a regular speed Superman trying to battle an actual Flash. A nice change of pace. I know that's very specific, but no, and like, I did enjoy that fight.
I like the limits of his power too, even that idea of like when the Deviant had him pinned down and he like couldn't turn his head, so he couldn't use his Cyclops eyes. It's like, okay.
Oh, when he was shooting eye stuff, did he remind you of that meme guy who was just like in his like high school classroom, like going like with his veins popping out of his head? Like anytime he shot his eye stuff.
I thought it was a bold move to like plant the corpse of Ajax on the South Dakota farm and then go like, and just laser eye a bunch. It's like, they're probably going to see the laser eye marks, dude. Like, it's going to be pretty clear you're here.
Yeah, this man's been laserizing for 7,000 years. He knows how to leave a laser eye mark or not.
It is weird.
Yeah, it's like, these are your exact like burn marks that we've seen you do thousands of times. You care to explain that at all?
Yeah, it's weird, like the power handoff in the MCU of like, okay, Quicksilver dies, but now we have Makari, and then Icarus flies into the sun, which I don't know if you caught that. It's a little thematically appropriate. And then that paves the way for Cyclops to come in at some point, probably, right, with X-Men. And so it's just like weird to be like, okay, your turn, now your turn, your turn. We don't want to overlap too much with anybody. It's good stuff.
That is, I can't believe I never thought about that Icarus flying into the sun thing. Oh,
you didn't? I was like, okay, did he think back to? He was like, yes, that old story that Sprite told about my history. That's how I'm gonna do it.
Right. And I know he's good at flying, but I don't know math, but it seems like that'd be a hell of a flight. He had a long time to think about going into that sun, and then still sticking with it. It's like, again, it was one of the most badass things conceptually in the MCU, somebody flying into the sun to kill themselves. And yet I woke up this morning and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that happened. It's just like this vague memory, which is so weird. That's my own fault, I guess. The Athena and Angelina Jolie, we haven't really talked too much about. Like, I think it's kind of a cool role for her to have this vibe of she's been around a lot, she knows a lot, she's awesome, but she's kind of a troubled soul and you should be scared of her. It's like, that's a pretty good read, I think, for like how we feel about Angelina Jolie as an actor these days. It's like, she's cool, but also like, feels like there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, there's element of mystery in there.
Yeah.
A really solid casting choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole time I was thinking like, oh man, I bet Kumail's super excited to have a scene with Angelina Jolie. Like every time, like that was because she was like the biggest name in the movie. Just like I kept being excited for other actors who had scenes with her.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, going back to Game Informer again, Kumail Nanjiani came by the Game Informer office at some point and played, I think it was Super Castlevania, so Castlevania 4 or whatever, on an episode of Replay. So it's kind of fun that, somebody that was on Replay back at Game Informer, which you can find on their YouTube channel, is now in the MCU. It's pretty wild.
That is pretty great. Is anyone else disappointed he didn't go full shirt off after all that work he put in?
Yeah, he really didn't need to do it. He could have just, I mean, the dance scene was the most elaborate thing. I guess, yeah, he wanted that big Thor moment of thrashing around in the little puddle or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, he could have used it.
Yeah. Did they make him do that? Or was he just like, I got to be a superhero, so I got to take this all the way? Like,
I don't know, probably. I mean, if you're going to be an MCU movie, you would probably be like, well, I should probably look the best I've ever looked in my life. I should probably shave off this mustache, step one. Step two, probably get yoked or whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, like, Rob Stark and Jon Snow kind of looked pretty normal. Like, they're always in, relatively good shape, but they didn't necessarily feel the need to, like, really bulk up and go to town. Right.
Yeah, why not? I guess it works. I thought it was interesting.
Sprite wasn't slanging weights.
That's true. Yeah, I thought Sprite actor. I'm curious who she was. But, yeah, I thought it was interesting. Obviously, you got the first big gay relationship in Marvel with Festus. And I'm very happy I saw this in a theater because it's like it's one of those good sign of the times thing. It's like the big kiss, the climactic kiss, but like the kiss between Festus and his husband. Like there was like I don't know if you caught this. It was very small. There's like a couple pockets of like homophobia in the theater. Like the person next to me who was very emotive at the time kind of gave like a type of thing.
Oh, no.
And then there were like people to the lower right that also were like like just like had to audibly say something. It was like, okay, that's probably a good sign that MCU is making some steps just to try and inch society along a little bit here. Be like, it's okay.
I was really worried about that actually when that happened. I was like, oh, is there gonna be weird, dumb reactions in the theater? And I didn't hear any on my side of our 3-seat thing. So I was like, oh, good. But apparently
there were just a couple. There was just a couple
out of the theater.
Yeah.
I heard that little bit too. And you got to give Marvel and Disney credit, because I know they had like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar requested some editing of that to be wholesale removed, and they're just like, no, we're not going to do it. So they're like, fine, the movie is banned here.
Interesting.
So,
well, it's nice to see them standing up to them. Yeah, it's China. I wonder if they would go back and make a couple small tweaks or something. But they're like, yeah, we can lose Saudi Arabia. I think that'll be fine for our box office total. Well, hey, that's Eternals, everybody. It is weird, and I want to celebrate it, but I don't know. I'm still trying to remember. I don't think I disliked it. Is the most I can say about Eternals, I think.
Yeah, like I said, for me, it was a real mixed bag. I tend to like most Marvel stuff so much that even a partially good, partially not good movie for me puts it at the bottom for what I enjoy. I'm sure there are people out there who like this movie hit them full force and they love it, and I would love to hear somebody who loves it talk about it, because I think they might have interesting things to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I went and watched all the Marvel movies again with my significant other back in the day, because she'd seen a couple here and there.
Yeah.
And I just remember having a margin, like at least a marginal level of enjoyment with every movie, and obviously some were a lot higher. But this, like, I just kept thinking about the time, and I'm like, how long is this movie? Like,
Sure.
There's no end in sight. Like the big, I don't think I want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Unless I have to.
Right.
I'm having a really hard time picturing an Eternals 2, where that fits in the schedule and where it fits in the plot. How these people are meshed with the main Marvel universe. You just look back at the building blocks of even Phase 1, where it was like every movie was its own thing, but at the end you'd have that Fury thing of like, hey, I'm building a team, like
Right.
This is just confusing on every level. I don't know.
I think it's kind of that interesting phase of the MCU that we're in, where it's all kind of spread out, diffused a little bit, where we're not building to anything. And I understand that's going to be frustrating for people, and just the thrill is going to be now how things interconnect. It's going to be like, oh, this person's popping up in this Disney Plus TV show, or oh my God, Blade is going to be in Black Knight. They're going to intertwine in some way. Like, it's just going to be those little things, and there'll probably be some huge big bad where they have some big crossover again. But I mean, when we're already dealing with a celestial like rubbing his nose on planet Earth, like who cares about Galactus at this point? Like, I understand. I'm sure he'll be a big deal in the future, and the Fantastic Four movie should be interesting and all that stuff. But it's just like, yeah, whatever. We've seen gigantic stuff already now. It's kind of, you already ripped off that Band-Aid.
It does kind of steal Galactus' thunder, which is another negative for this movie.
I don't know. But hey, that's it. Yeah, I think like the core of it in a lot of ways is, I don't know if I even, this is crazy to say having watched thousands of them, but I don't even know if I really like superhero movies. I just like action comedies. And Marvel was creating the best action comedies out there. And this is a stretch to call an action comedy. And again, I'm happy for them branching out and getting weird and stuff, but that's what ultimately I was thinking of, is just give people fun. That's what they want. They don't want some homage to Jack Kirby that's a lore dump. I know that fans are going to be enthralled, but like the average person is just not going to be on board with this. Curious to see those user reviews and stuff like that. But all right.
I'm curious to see the box office.
Yeah.
The first weekend.
Yep. That's going to be interesting. And who knows what the box office even means these days. I think there's going to be a lot of people. I am just dreading there's going to be a huge, well, I hope I don't see it, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, see, box office wasn't that great, lowest reviewed Marvel movie. The problem is that they got woke and they went broke, like that classic trope of like, yeah, the one with the gay guy and the deaf girl, of course that one is bad. I'm sure those pieces of crap are going to be out there, and so I'm bracing for impact on that. But again, hopefully I won't see that corner of the internet and everything will be fine.
Yeah, I do. Gosh. Yeah, I don't want it to fail because I didn't like it, but I also, I hate that there's that side of it too that'll be like, oh, it's so diverse.
Yeah,
and that's why
angry dudes are going to be yelling in their cars regardless. So all you can do is just try to avoid it.
Yeah. All right, hey, there we go. Eternals, everybody. Let us know what you think in the comments. We'd appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, you want to like the podcast version of all other Max spoilers and everything like that, you can always go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We'd appreciate it. Again, tune in this Saturday, everybody. I feel like I'm saying this in every show, but this Saturday, we have a big 25-hour stream raising money for Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's a children's hospital. We're doing our big extra life stream where we're crossing over with Game Informer and folks from Easy Allies. So get ready for a big, fun charity stream, a bunch of wacky segments, great things to auction off. We have hundreds and hundreds of game codes to give away. So if you donate any amount, you can win a game code. So you can even donate right now by going to bit.ly/SaveSomeKids. Make a donation there, give the consoles you own, and we'll ship out a code. Potentially. We have like 300 codes or something like that. So your odds are very high. But all right, that's it, everybody. Ross, Bryan, thank you so much. Would either of you like to plug anything?
I would just like to say that I can't wait for Hawkeye. That's high hopes for that one.
Yeah.
Starting at the end of this month.
That's
and
right.
I can't believe we made it this long in the recording without referencing the IKEA table joke.
Yes. Yes. That is just blasphemous that we haven't done it. But Bryan, thanks for being here, dude.
Thank you. Just remember the MinnMax Instagram.
Oh,
if
that's
you go
right.
there and find the post about the podcast, you have a chance to win a copy of Resident Evil 7 on PlayStation. And also, we're doing a thing to give away Fixture S1s once we hit 2,100 followers. There's a giveaway post on there. You find out how to enter. So be sure to follow us on Instagram.
There it is. Follow MinnMax Show on Instagram, everybody. Cool. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.